First of all, hi to everyone. Myself Prashant. We are in part 8 of the chapter Historical Background, and our today's topic is Government of India Act of 1935. So let's start. Before discussing the important point of this act, we need to know the background of this act, right? So, uh, Government of India Act of 1919 had a provision that after 10 years this act will be reviewed and analyzed. So in accordance with the provision of this act, in 1927 Simon Commission came. Though this commission had to come in year 1929, but it came 2 years before only, right? So this commission had all British member, right? Not a single Indian, all British member. And because of this there was all party boycott in India, all party boycott in India. So definitely there there arose a situation of deadlock. So to resolve the deadlock, British government convened three round table conferences. First round table conference was in was from was in year 1932 1931. Second roundtable conference was in year 1931, and third roundtable conference was in year 1932, right? So this roundtable conference mm, gave a proposal, right? And this proposal was forwarded to joint select committee of British Parliament, joint select committee of British Parliament, and this committee then gave a recommendation, right? And on the basis of this recommendation, Government of India Act of 1935 came with certain changes. It was not a copy paste, right? So this was necessary to highlight. That is why I highlighted. That is why I highlighted. So now the first point of this act says Government of India Act of 1935 says that federal list, provincial list, and concurrent list came into being, and residuary power was with the viceroy, right? Residuary power was with the viceroy, right? Third point says that federation. Third point in first point only. Third point in first point only says that federation never. It will be N. Federation never came into being as princely states did not join, right? So let's discuss this point in a little detail and compare it with the provisions of Government of India Act of 1919, which also had a similar point. So to make a clear distinction and better understanding, let's make a column. So Government of India Act of 1919 and Government of India Act of 1935, right? So, according to this 1935 Act, federal list, federal list, provincial list, provincial list, and concurrent list, right? Concurrent list. According to this, only central list, and provincial list, right? So here two list and here three list, right? So here it is saying residuary power with viceroy, viceroy. So this is when residuary power lies with viceroy. This is also a sign of a centralized. This is also a sign of centralized tendency, right? And here also in Government of India Act of 1919, government was largely centralized and unitary, right? Centralized and unitary, right? So this is what, 1 second. So this is what you needed to know. And the third point says that third point says that federation never came into being as princely states did not join. So I hope it is clear. Now, the second point of this Act, 1935 Act says that there was diarchy at the diarchy at provinces was abolished. Provinces were given highest autonomy, and diarchy at center came. So these are all different points in second point only, since they are interrelated, right? So, first point says that diarchy at provinces was abolished. Second, provinces given highest autonomy, and third, diarchy at center. So let's discuss all these 3 points in detail. So, Government of India Act of 1935, right? So, first point says that diarchy was abolished, right? So, uh, di so diarchy we know came through diarchy at provinces, at provincial level. At provincial level came through Government of India Act of 1919. You need to know this, right? This is important. And through this 1935 Act, this was abolished, right? Second, second point says that provinces were given highest autonomy, right? So, here provinces were given highest autonomy. In what sense? So I will first demarcate, right? Government of India Act of 1919 and Government of India Act of 1935. We will discuss the provincial autonomy status, right? In Gor 1 second. In Government of India Act of 1919, we saw that there were uh, like there was diarchy at provincial level. So there were two subjects, right? Transfer subjects and reserved subject. So we saw that in transport subject, transfer subject, then reserved subject, right? So in transport subject, we saw governor administered through aid of council of ministers, council of ministers responsible to responsible to legislative council, legislative council, right? And in reserved subject, we saw a governor administered, administered, administered through aid of executive council, through aid of executive council, not responsible, not responsible to legislative council, right? Legislative council, right? So remember the word administers, right? Here also governor administers. But what happened in Government of India Act of 1935? Now, now, now now governor, since provinces got autonomy, now governor had to act. Remember this word, act. had to act had to act with the advice of council of minister, with the advice of council of minister, right? So there is a difference between act and administer. So we can clearly see that here governor acts with the advice of council of minister, and here we are seeing that governor administers through aid of council of minister responsible to legislative council. And here also we see in reserved subject also that governor administers through aid of executive not responsible to legislative council. So we can see that a lot of autonomy was provided to provinces through Government of India Act of 1935. And interestingly, this this autonomy was only for 2 years. It was from 1937 to till 1939. So this provincial autonomy, this type of provincial autonomy existed for only 2 years, from year 1937 to 1939. Thereafter, it was removed, right? So this is you needed to know. It is very important to know the clear distinction and clear difference. Now, here it is saying that the diarchy at center came through this act, right? But though this act provided for diarchy at center with here also there were two subjects, right? Transferred subject, transfer subject, and reserved subject, subject at center. But this provision never came into being. But this provision was never effective, never effective, never effective, or came into being, came into effect, right? So this you need to know. Now, I hope I have covered all the points. Yeah. Now, the third point says that bicameralism in six provinces uh, came through this act, right? Earlier, in 1919, in 1919 Act, in Government of India 1919 Act, bicameralism. One second. In Government of India Act 1919, bicameralism was in Central Legislative Assembly only. In Central Legislative Assembly, right? But now, through this act, in six provinces, in provincial level, bicameralism came. So the provinces were Bombay, Bengal, Madras, Bihar, Assam, right? Uh, Bengal, Madras, Assam, and United Province, United Province, right? So in six provinces, and at that time there were total 11 provinces. You also know, you need to know the total number of provinces. So out of 11, in six, bicameralism, right? Bicameralism, right? So you need to know. And what is bicameralism? I think it is not needed, but l- let me highlight it again. So there are two houses, lower house and upper house. Lower house is called uh, legislative assembly, legislative assembly, and upper house is called council of state, right? So this is what it means. And fourth point says that uh, communal representation for depressed classes women and labor came through this act. So we saw that through Indian Council Act, of 1909, communal electorate for whom? Communal representation, communal electorate for whom? So for Muslim electorate, right? Muslim electorate through through uh, through through Government of India Act of 1919, uh, electorate for Sikh, Indian Christians, Indian Christians, then Europeans and Anglo Indians, right? Anglo Indians, right? So, and through this Government of India Act of 1935, this electorate system was extended to depressed classes. Who are depressed classes? Basically, scheduled caste. Then it was extended to women and labor. Who are labor? Labor here means workers. So this you need to know, right? Now let's move to the next slide. So fifth point says that Council of India was abolished through this act, and this Council of India was formed through Government of India Act of 1858. So we know that there was a 15-member council to assist whom? To assist Secretary of State in India, right? And it came through Government of India Act of 1858, and the same council got abolished through 1935 Act, which is Government of India Act of 1935. Then sixth point says that 10% of total population got voting right. So we saw in Government of India Act of 1919 that voting right was limited to person with property, education, and who paid taxes, right? So this is example of limited franchisee, franchisee, and this also, if it's only 10% of total population, we can say this is also in a way example of limited franchisee only. Since universal population doesn't have the right to vote, so we can say it in a way it is also a limited franchisee. So what does universal adult franchise mean? Universal adult franchise. Here, everyone has the right to vote, and value of everyone's vote is 1 unit only. One unit, right? Now, let's move to the next slide. So, through this act, RBI, this act said that RBI should be set up. So, through this act, RBI was set up in year 1937. It's 1937. I think I don't remember the year, but anyways, you can search it. I don't know the exact year. So through this act, RBI got set up, and this act also provided a setting up of Federal Public Service Commission, Provincial Public Service Commission, and Joint Public Service Commission, PSC for Public Service Commission. This PSC for Public Service Commission, Public Service Commission, right? So we saw in Government of India Act of 1919 that Central Public Service Commission was set up in year 1926, right? And here we are saying that this act said that Federal Public Service Commission should be set up, Provincial Public Service Commission should be set up, and Joint Public Service Commission should be set up, right? This act also said that or advocated for setting up of federal court, and ultimately federal court was set up in year 1937. So federal court is basically a court at central level, court at center, or we can also say the Supreme Court, right? Supreme Court of any country, Supreme Court of any country, right? Of any country. So this is it, I guess, right? So I guess I have covered all the important points of this Act, Government of India Act of 1935. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed and learned something from this video. I'll be coming up next with the last act of this chapter, that is Indian Independence Act of 1947, right? So thank you again. Thank you so much.